Correct. So now we observe how establishes or how are providing the communications between the client server systems. So here to establish or to provide the communication among client servers, so we are using the some socket, and also some procedure calls. Here procedure means nothing but some function. So just like some function calls. So here we are using the remote procedure calls. So procedure call means we are invoking the particular function or the particular system. But remote procedure call means we are invoking or we are interacting with that particular node or that particular process in any system, not only within system, in anywhere throughout the world. So that is remote procedure call. And the pipes. So to establish or to providing the communication between one node to the another node, or client to the server, or server to the client. So that communication was processed through some specific channel. So that is nothing but pipe. And next, remote method invocation. So we are invoking the several processes to complete that particular communication. So these are the several things we are going to discuss in client server communication system. So first of all, coming to the sockets. So actually a socket is some endpoint. So why we are using that particular endpoint means for providing the communication. For example, very simple thing. For example, if you want to listen some music, some video files, or watching video files through your mobile phone. So to listen the music, what is the endpoint? Either some speaker or that particular headphone socket. So that means headphone port. So that is the endpoint to providing the interfacing with that mobile for enjoying or for listening the music. So that like, so here if you want to listen some music through headsets or any others, so for that purpose we are using some endpoint. That endpoint is responsible for providing the communication among that handset to the user for listening the music. At the same way, for example, if you want to accessing the network services through our laptops or desktops, so for that purpose also we are using some endpoint. So that is LAN port. So LAN port through connection oriented through wire. So for that purpose we are using some LAN port. So that is also mentioned RJ45 socket. So here that endpoint is responsible for either send the data or receives the data. So from that particular device. So whatever the data receives within such system or within that system, or whatever the data wants to send from that system. So for that purpose it was using some communication point or some endpoint. So that is nothing but RJ45 or LAN port. So in this way, so that is the basic definition or that is the meaning of the socket. So just now we observe what is meant by socket. So now we observe how the particular socket was establishes the communication among different nodes or two processes. So here this socket is the combination of two addresses. Here socket address is a combination of two addresses. So that is one is the IP address and socket address. So already we know what is meant by IP address. So now we know about what is meant by socket address or socket identity. So here in any device to providing a communication with any other device. So for that purpose we are using some communication endpoints. So here each and every endpoint is uniquely identified with some number. So that is especially unsigned integer number. So with the help of that number, here operating system or the particular system can uniquely identify each and every communication endpoint. So for that purpose, each and every endpoint is identified with some number. So that number is nothing but socket ID or socket address. So whenever we want to communicate with any specific device, So for that purpose, so we know two addresses. One is the destination or our required device address, whatever the device we want to communicate it. So that device address, and within that device, whatever the communication port was used or whatever the socket was used, so their identity, so both was required to establishing the communication among the two or more devices. So that is nothing but concatenation of the IP address and port number. So that is nothing but socket address. So here, so this particular number is differentiated with the help of some special symbol, that is the colon. For example, your system IP is just like 192.168.1.20, and within your system, to providing the communication with to establishing the communication with other system. So for that purpose, you are using some specific port, and that port number is just like 120. So then whenever I want to send some information to you, for that purpose I will check what is your IP address along with whatever the port was used to establishing or to processing the communication with your device. So that is the port address, or that is the socket address. So here both are differentiated with the colon. So that is 192.168.1.20, just assume. So colon 128. So in this manner. So here, in case that this is the socket address 161.25.19.8 colon 1625. So it means 161.25.19.8 is the IP address of the particular device, and 1625 is the port number for that particular communication. So here these communication in client server communication, so the particular communication is in between the two pairs, one pair of your sockets. So one socket is at node A, another socket is at node B. So both are uniquely identifies the some sockets at the source node side and the destination node side. So whenever those two nodes wants to exchange some information, then those two nodes must know about senders or receivers IP address along with port numbers. So here these are all ports. So whatever the ports was used in socket addresses, those all ports are less than or equals to the 1024. So why? Because to providing the unique port addresses within a device, we are using the 10 bit, yeah, so 10 bit address. So that's why at max it allows the 1024. So that is the 2 power 10. So here we are using this particular standard socket address. So why, sir, IP addresses is 32 bit, but why we are using socket addresses only 10 bit means so within a system at max how many number of ports are available at max? Either single digit or 10 double digit. In worst case either triple digit. So that's why 1024 is enough for socket ID. So here this, for example, to communicate with the projector, so for that purpose it was using some port like HDMI port or VGA port. So that port is also uniquely identifies with some port number. To providing the audio, for that purpose using some audio jack. So that is also uniquely identifies with some port number. So in this manner, so every device at max having few number of ports only. So that's why we are using the 10 bit address for sockets. So in this process, whenever we are establishing the communication among client and server system, we are using some special IP address. So that is 127.0.0.1. So this special IP address is used to refer that particular system on which process is running on that particular system. So that is also mentioned as the loopback. So to know currently which process is running on that particular device or that particular network, so for that purpose we are using the special address. So now we observe how establishing or how to providing the socket communication. So for example, there are two devices. So those are host X and this is the some server. So here host address is host IP address is 146.86.5.20 and server address is 161.25.19.8. So whenever host was send a connection request to the server, so at that situation, so here host was first of all choose what is the endpoint to establishing or to interfacing with some specific server. So for that purpose, first of all, it was choose some socket, some endpoint. So that endpoint ID is 1625. So next, at the same way, here web server. So it was using to establishing to providing the services to the several clients. So for that purpose, it was using some socket address, that is the ID. So that's why whenever we want to establishing or communicating with from this host X to the web server, we mention, so this is the source address is 146.86.5.20:1625. So what is the destination address when sending the data from client to the server? So now we are sending the data in this direction. So in this process, this is the source node and this is the destination node. Here node means it may be anything, which may be computer, mobile or any electronic device. So in this is the source address and this is the destination address. So data is transmitting from client node to the server node. So that means it was requesting something to the web server. So whenever server was processed that request and send the response to the client node. So in this process, this is the source node address and this is the destination node address. So in this way, both nodes can exchange the information. So this is the process of socket communication. So here, two nodes are communicated with some specific socket. So now we observe some simple implementation, how to implement the sockets in some programming languages. So before going to discussing or observing sample code to the sockets, first of all we observe what are the different types of sockets. So actually we are using three types of sockets. One is the connection oriented socket and another one is the connectionless and another one is the multicast socket. So whenever we want to providing the communication among client and server in connection oriented manner. So for that purpose we are using some specific protocol. So that protocol is the TCP, Transmission Control Protocol. TCP indicates Transmission Control Protocol. So this is the connection oriented service protocol. So whenever we want to exchange information among two or more nodes in connection oriented manner, then we can choose TCP protocol. So in case whenever we want to establish the connection or providing the communication among two nodes in wireless or connectionless, so for that purpose we are using the UDP protocol. So here UDP indicates user datagram protocol. UDP is user datagram protocol. So this protocol is used especially while we are going to exchanging information or providing the communication in connectionless manner. So for that purpose we are using the UDP. Next, multicast socket. So this is used whenever we want to send the data to multiple users. So actually whenever we want to send the data among client to server or server to client, for that purpose we are using either TCP or UDP. So in the same way, if you want to send some data to the multiple nodes or if you want to receive the data from multiple nodes or multiple devices, at that situation we are using the multicast sockets. So these are the three types. So why we was used only TCP for connection oriented, why we are used UDP for connectionless means in TCP protocol, so it was having several steps. So before going to establishing the communication, so before going to processing the communication, so first of all it required setup phase. It was having three phases: setup phase, transmission phase, termination phase. Setup phase means it was establishing the connection from source node to the destination node. And the transmission phase means it was transferring the data, whatever the data wants to exchange among those two nodes. And the termination phase means it was releasing the particular connection. So this is the process of TCP. Coming to the UDP, so it doesn't have any establishment, any release, directly transmits the data. So that's why while we are going to choose connectionless services, UDP is the better. And the multicast socket means whenever we are using, it may be connection oriented or connectionless, both cases, but we can send data to the multiple users. At the situation, we can use multicast socket. In case that is connection oriented, then we are using the TCP protocol. In case that is connectionless, then we can choose the UDP. But here only the variation is either that communication among single user or multiple users or multiple nodes. So that is the only variation. So now this is some sample code for implementing the sockets in Java language. So first of all, we can define some server and create some one more class, that is try. So here it was checking to create some new socket. So in case that the socket creation was failed, then it will display some error message, there is some exception message. So in case it was successfully created the particular socket, then go to accepting the connection from the client node. So that purpose we are using this method, socket.accept. So after establishing that connection, then it was accepting the data from that particular node. So for that purpose we are using the stream, client.getOutput stream. So after that we are copied that particular data into the socket. For that purpose we are using this command, so this instruction, pout.println of new java.util.date to the string. So here it was converts from date to the string format. After completion of this data transmission, we are closing the connection. So for that purpose, client.close. So in case here the server socket creation was failed, then it was displaying some exception message. So this exception message. So in this manner, we are creating some sockets in Java language. So those are the details about sockets. So now we can discuss about the remote procedure call. So before going to discussing about remote procedure call, first of all we know a local procedure call or procedure call. So here procedure call means nothing but we are invoking some specific system or some specific node for getting some information. So that is nothing but the procedure call. Remote procedure within the system. So we are invoking some specific procedure within the same system, that is local procedure call. We are invoking some system call in throughout the world or outside of this such a device, that is nothing but remote procedure call. So here this remote procedure call can abstract whatever the procedure calls between the different processes on network systems. So whenever we are formed as some network, so that means two or more devices was formed as some network. So that means two or more devices as having some links to establish, to transfer, to exchanging information among those devices. That is the network. So basically network means connection between two or more devices. For which purpose? To exchanging the information. So that is nothing but network. So in this manner, whenever we want to invoke or whenever we want to call some system on that network, not within the system, some other system, we want to use some specific service on some other system. For that purpose, we are we are using the remote procedure call. So this remote procedure call uses several ports for providing the services in different for providing the different services. That means, for example, if you want to transfer the just web pages, if you want to transfer the or exchanging the web pages among two or more nodes, for that purpose we are using some specific port number. If you want to send some large files through the network, for that purpose we are using some specific port number. If you want to send email, for that purpose we are using some specific port number. So in this manner, so based on the service, it was using the different port number. For example, for web page exchanging, so for that purpose it was using the port number as 18. For transferring the larger files, at the situation we are using the FTP protocol. So at the situation we are using the port numbers as 23 21, 22 or 22, 23, those two port numbers, 21, 22 I think. So those port numbers. So in case we are using any other service, the related port number will be used. So based on this port number, here the particular device can differentiate the particular service is belongs to which category. Is it email or is it a web document or any FTP or any others. So in this process, we are using the stubs. We are using the some stub. So here stub means nothing but to processing whatever the procedure required on the server or whatever the procedure required on the client node. So that means whenever client wants to communicate with the server, whenever client wants to establish some communication with the server. So at that situation, whatever the process behind such entire process, that process is called as stub. That we are using some browser. ఎలా కమ్యూనికేట్ అవుతున్నాం సర్వర్ ఆర్ ఎనీ అదర్ నోట్ ఇన్ అవర్ డివైసెస్ we are using the browser. So this browser was having some procedure to establishing the connection or to send the data or to receive the data from any other node. So for that purpose it was having some procedure. So that procedure is that entire process is known as this stub. So this stub was used in both side, client side and server side. But whenever we are using the particular procedure in client side, then we mention stub. And next, this client stub locates on the server and marshals the parameters. So here, this particular client server client server stub can be located on server also. So for which purpose? To easily recognizing that particular services belongs to which purpose, either sending the mail or any others. So for that purpose. And here marshals means nothing but some data centers, like those are providing you some data. So for that purpose, those are using the several parameters. So in this process, whenever we are using the stub in server side, so that stub is responsible for receive the message. Whenever we are using the stub in client side, that stub is responsible for generating the request. That request was sent to the server. For example, a very simple thing. So we are for example, I want to know something about some specific thing. For example, okay, just I want to know what is the meaning of stub. So just I was enter stub meaning in networks. మనకు networks లో stub అంటే ఏంటో తెలియాలి. So that's why in networks. So that is the I want to know. So the concept I want to know. So for that purpose, what is the procedure? I was open browser and automatically it was redirected to the Google server. So here this particular terminology or this particular keyword was searched on which website, web server, Google server. So that's why here it mentioned Google. Next. So I was entered the particular topic and then hit the enter key. Then what happened? It was displaying some number of results. సో ఇక్కడ ఇంటర్నల్ గా ప్రాసెస్ ఏం జరుగుతుంది? సో ఇన్ క్లయింట్ సైడ్, క్లయింట్ ఆర్ యూజర్ వాజ్ ఎంటర్ సమ్ మెసేజ్. సో అంటే ఏంటి? నౌ ఐ ఆమ్ రిక్వెస్టింగ్ టు ది గూగుల్ సర్వర్. ఏం రిక్వెస్ట్ చేశాను? వాట్ ఈస్ ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ స్టబ్ ఇన్ నెట్వర్క్? సో how that particular message was forwarded to the web server with the help of browser. By using the Chrome browser, I am sending that particular request to the web server, Google server. So internally what happened? Here browser is responsible for what is the message given by the client. So that particular message was arranged. That particular message was arranged in Google server understandable manner. ఆ పర్టికులర్ మెసేజ్ ని ఏ ఫార్మాట్ లో సెండ్ చేస్తే గూగుల్ సర్వర్ ఐడెంటిఫై చేయగలదు లేదా అండర్స్టాండ్ చేసుకోగలదు, ఆ ఫార్మాట్ లోకి కన్వర్ట్ చేసి అండ్ దెన్ ఫార్వర్డింగ్ సచ్ మెసేజ్ టు ది గూగుల్ సర్వర్. సో ఈ ప్రాసెస్ అంతా ఎవరు చేస్తున్నారు? వెబ్ సర్వర్, సారీ గూగుల్ సర్వర్, సారీ బ్రౌజర్. సో బ్రౌజర్ ఈస్ ప్రాసెసింగ్ దిస్ ఎంటైర్ థింగ్. సో ఈ ప్రాసెస్ మొత్తాన్ని ఏమంటున్నాము? స్టబ్ అంటున్నాము. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ స్టబ్. Okay, so now we are getting some number of results. How many results? 1, 10, hundreds, thousands. 10,000, lakhs, 10 lakhs, 33 lakh and 10,000 results related to stub meaning. So within how much time? 0.6 seconds, that means less than 1 second. 0.6 seconds లో మనకి ఎన్ని రిజల్ట్స్ వచ్చాయి రిలేటెడ్ టు స్టబ్ మీనింగ్? 33 lakhs రిజల్ట్స్ వచ్చాయి. సో దీస్ ఆల్ రిజల్ట్స్ గ్యాదర్డ్ ఫ్రమ్ వేర్? గూగుల్ సర్వర్. సో అంటే హియర్ క్లయింట్ వాజ్ సెండింగ్ ద రిక్వెస్ట్ టు ది సర్వర్. ఏమని? వాట్ ఈస్ ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ స్టబ్? ఇప్పుడు గూగుల్ సర్వర్ ఏం చేస్తుంది? ఇట్ విల్ చెక్ ద పర్టికులర్ కీవర్డ్, ఏంటి? స్టబ్ మీనింగ్ నెట్వర్క్. ఆ కీవర్డ్ ని సో దేర్ డేటాబేస్ లో సెర్చ్ చేస్తుంది, గూగుల్ డేటాబేస్ లో సెర్చ్ చేస్తుంది. సో దానికి మ్యాచ్ అయ్యే వాటి అన్నింటిని ఇక్కడ డిస్ప్లే చేస్తుంది. సో దీస్ ఆర్ ద రిజల్ట్స్. సో వాట్ ఈస్ స్టబ్ నెట్వర్క్, వాట్ ఈస్ ద స్టబ్ ఇన్ నెట్వర్క్స్, those related videos. In this manner, these all are resulted from different websites. So these all are collected by the Google server within 0.6 seconds. So within 0.6 seconds లో వాటిని ప్రాసెసింగ్ చేసి ఆ రిజల్ట్ ని మనకి సెండ్ చేస్తుంది, క్లయింట్ నోడ్ కి సెండ్ చేస్తుంది. సో this is the process. So in this process, server side stub is responsible for receives the messages from the client node and processing that particular messages to the marshals. Marshal means data centers. So these are having the data about different things. Next. So for example, we are using in Windows platform. Then here stub code is compiled from the some specific language. We are using some specific, and actually we are not developed this entire thing. These all are developed by the Chrome. So Chrome or Microsoft Edge web browsers, Firefox, in this manner. But whenever we want to provide these services in Windows platform, then we are using this specific language, MIDL, Microsoft Interface Definition Language. Next. So in this process, the particular data was represented via some data representation language. So that is external data representation. So why we are using this representation language means here server was accepting the connections from different client nodes. So here each and every client was using their own operating system or their own procedure, their own format to sending the messages, and their own formats to receiving the messages. So whenever that request is processed by the server, then it was using some specific language or some specific format. So that format is easily understandable by the user, and based on the user, it can processing the particular result in user understandable format. For that purpose, it was using some specific language. That language is external data representation language, that is the XDL. So in this we are using two terminologies, big endian and little endian. So here big endian means nothing but it was processing the data from rightmost significant bit. Little endian means it was processing the data from leftmost significant bit or least significant bit, in this manner. So in this remote communication, so there is a chance to getting the more failures. So at that situation, it can check that the particular message was exactly delivered or not. So in case the particular message was delivered, then it will go for another process. In case the particular message was not delivered, then it will repeat the same process once again. So in this process, operating system provides the renders service to the client and server. What is the meaning of renders? So already discussed in last session. So to processing the particular data, either sending the data from client to server or server to client. So for that purpose, both nodes are hold until completion of the processing the particular data. So that situation is known as the renders bus. So here we can observe how to processing the execution of remote procedure call. So here first of all, user was calling the kernel for establishing or for sending the remote procedure call. So why we are using RPC? To send some message to the some another node. So that's why first of all we are interacting with the RPC. So now it was sending that particular request to the kernel. So this kernel was sending the messages to the matchmaker. So here matchmaker means nothing but renders bus. So that means it will block both client node and server node until passing this particular message. And particular message pass అయ్యేంత వరకు both nodes, client and server nodes, doesn't participate in any other service. So that's why. So it was received at server side. So now this matchmaker can replace to the client. So server receive చేసుకున్న తర్వాత server ఏం చేసిన కనెక్షన్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేస్తుంది, దట్ ఈస్ యాక్సెప్ట్ చేస్తుంది. So now it was sending that acknowledgement to the client node. So that is kernel places port P in user RPC message. Okay. So first of all here the client node was sending the request to the server node. Now the server node was check some port or some socket for that particular communication. If it was allocated, then send such information to the client node. So now client node was sent whatever the message wants to, whatever the message was shared with the server node, that message was sent to the server. So now server was processing that particular message and send the output to the client node. So this is the procedure behind remote procedure call. So why we are called as remote procedure means this client node and the server node are located in different processes or different nodes. Client node is located at some place and server node is located at somewhere else. So in case we are processing same communication within the same system, then we mention internal or local procedure call. Next. So now we discuss what is meant by pipe. So already at the beginning of this session we was just discuss what is meant by pipe. So here pipe is some channel, some communication channel. That particular communication channel is responsible for allowing the two processes, both process A and process B. For which purpose? To communication among process A to B, B to A. So that is nothing but pipe. So here while we are going to establishing these channels or these pipes, what are the several issues faced by the developer? So that is this communication is either unidirectional or bidirectional. So now we are going to establishing some communication channel among two nodes. So in this process, what are the several issues means? So we don't know that initially that particular communication is either unidirectional or bidirectional. That is the one issue. And in case we are using the bidirectional, so at that situation, is it hard duplex or full duplex? So what is when the unidirectional or bidirectional data is transmitted? Always from node A to node B. Always from node A to node B. That is unidirectional. Bidirectional means sometimes it was transmitted from A to B, B to A. For example, any best example for unidirectional, keyboard. Best example is the keyboard. Here, what is the data processing? Always keyboard was sending the data to CPU. It doesn't receive any data from the CPU. Keyboard CPU data receive చేసుకుంటే చేసుకోదాం. Just it was giving the instruction to the CPU only. That is the unidirectional. Bidirectional means the printer can mention as a bidirectional. Why? It was receives the data from CPU, at the same way send the data to the CPU. Eప్పుడు send data send చేస్తుంది whenever we scan some documents. We are scanning some document. At the situation it was taking the input from printer to CPU. Whenever it was print out something, at that situation it was taking the input from CPU and output produced by the printer in this manner. So that is bidirectional. So in case we are decided, in case that is two-way communication. Again the problem is at a time only data was allowed from client to the server or server to the client. Email of processing channel. Later at a time it was allowed from bidirectional. That means server to the client and client to the server can be processed at a time. That is nothing but hard duplex and full duplex. Already discussed in earlier classes. So in this process, we must to provide in this communication, we must have some parent process. So and that particular parent process creating this pipe, and that particular pipe can be allows the entire communication among the particular parent and their childs only. So now the particular pipe can be used over the network, so entire network. So in this process we are using the different pipes, so that is the ordinary pipes and named pipes. So these ordinary pipes are used within the particular parent and child relations only. In case we want to use the particular pipe outside of the particular parent or the particular tree, so at that situation we are using the named pipes. So these are the two types of pipes, ordinary pipes and named pipes. So these named pipes can be accessed anywhere, so without any parent or child relationship. But in case we are using the ordinary pipes, so for example if I want to accessing that particular pipe, as a ordinary pipe. So ordinary pipes మనం యూస్ చేస్తున్నాం. In this situation, if I want to use that particular pipe, so at that situation, what is the restriction here? Myself is the some child process of the particular parent node. Then only I can access that particular pipe. So I am not belongs to the particular parent node. Then I can't be able to access that particular pipe. So in case we are using the named pipe, in this situation, so any process can access the particular pipe for accessing the for processing the data. So now we have just some more details about the ordinary pipes. So here ordinary pipes can allow the communication in some standard producer and consumer manner. So producer and consumer means, so here there are two nodes. One node was producing the data, another node was receives the data. So that means sending the data and receives the data. After some time, node B was sending the data and node A was receives the data. So in this manner. So here this producer is always write something to the particular pipe, and the consumer is always read or accepting some data from the particular pipe. So these are the ordinary pipes. So these ordinary pipes are unidirectional. That means at a time they were sending the data in one direction only. So in Windows system, this ordinary pipes is called as the anonymous pipes. So these are the details about ordinary pipes. So general ordinary pipes means parent-child relationship, and so there is some tree just like root node and child node and their child nodes in this manner. So we can get only this tree related processes only accessing the particular pipe. Next, named pipes. Just now we observe this named pipes means there is some pipe. So that particular pipe can be accessed by the any process, not only within that device. Any process can accessing the particular pipe. Any process can accessing that particular pipe for sharing their data. So these named pipes are powerful than the ordinary pipes. So why? Because in this named pipes communication is allowed in bidirectional manner, both directions, sender to node A to node B, node B to node A at a time simultaneously. So that's why there was no parent and child relationship was used in the named pipes. So here these named pipes can be used by the different processes already discussed. So these named pipes can be implemented in both Windows platform and the Unix platform. So these are the details about some details about the pipes, and then client server architecture.